Reconnecting. Let me see. Trying to reconnect. Hey, you guys, we're going to get started in 1 second. It's not letting me come up. You see it?
I can see it.
It's saying pause due to. Are you paused? One moment, you guys.
So I'm not paused. Well, I know you are. So I don't know if I'm.
We're going to try this on Instagram. I'm going to go out and go back in. One moment, Facebook. We're going to get started. We're trying to make sure our live works in Instagram. Be bold. Be brave. Did you see the mute button?
Yes.
Okay. Come on, Instagram. It's telling me I have due to it's not letting me do it.
Okay.
It keeps pausing.
Today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome.
It is not letting me do it here. So we're just going to do it on Instagram. I mean, on Facebook.
Okay.
So welcome, you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to get into this conversation. I'm trying to, if people are still trying to get in, I don't know what's going on. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to just try to get out of it because it's not letting me do it. So, welcome to the Heal Black Joy podcast presents Soul Food and War. I am Lola Troy, the host and curator of Heal Black Joy, the learning platform for our community to heal our Black joy with tangible and attainable programs for the mind, body, soul, relationships, and businesses. And in today's conversation, we're going to be talking about be bold, be brave, be confident in the workplace, and also a topic that I am super excited about talking about, which is racial trauma, not only in the workplace, but several other areas. My guest tonight is Warren B. Wright. He is a licensed professional counselor and national certified counselor. He's the owner of Transformational Counseling, Coaching and Consulting LLC in College Station, Texas. He specializes in working with adults impacted by race-based stress, racial trauma, and life transitions. Additionally, he is co-owner of the Black Healing Empowerment Collaborative, where he provides mental health related education, training, and consultation to organizations. He is the author of A Dose of Motivation, Taking Ownership of Your Life, Tapping into Your Potential, and Stepping into Your Purpose. Warren creates space for healing and transformation as a counselor, author, and speaker. If you would like to contact him, we're going to put that in our chat as well as a banner, which is warren@transformationalservices.org. Please, you guys, welcome Warren Wright.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be here. So honored to just be invited on this platform just to talk about something that's so near and dear to my heart, that I specialize in and work with clients around. So glad to be here talking about this topic.
Absolutely. I love your t-shirt, by the way. I know that is your mantra, untriggered racial
Yes.
trauma healing, right? What does it
Healer,
say?
racial trauma healer.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I
So,
love it. I
yeah.
love
So my friend Jennifer Hatchett Stover, she's one of my good friends, and she created this nonprofit, Untriggered, and so she created this shirt for me for this interview. So shout out to
Oh,
her.
wow.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
wow. Shout out to her. We might have to put her information in the comments so people
of
can
course,
support her.
of course.
Um, let's talk about workplace trauma. I know that you experienced some things in your workplace prior to going into business for yourself. But a few months ago, we did topics about trauma that we don't talk about,
Yep.
very often. And workplace trauma was one of the topics that we discussed with our good sister, Heather Archer, who also wrote The Grind Detox. She talks about how grind culture kind of is a marriage to staying in spaces that a lot of times holds us hostage to jobs, situations that no longer serve us mentally, emotionally, and physically. So tell me about your experience, your own workplace trauma, and the decision you made to change it.
Yes, yes. So for me, my history is working in predominantly white spaces as a staff counselor. And, what I've experienced and what I've witnessed vicariously is um, my black colleagues, my sisters, my brothers be, disrespected, be attacked, be belittled. Our intentions were questioned often. And so, I begin to kind of reflect on my experience and say something is not right here. Something's going on. And I remember doing a presentation for two Black student organizations on the campus that I work for,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking over the literature and just kind of looking at some stuff on YouTube, and I was just like, oh, some of this stuff I've been experiencing, and I know other people that have been experiencing in other workplaces as well,
Mm-hmm.
not just in college counseling centers or clinics, but if they are a Black woman and they are in a leadership position for a company, or if they're a professor, or if they are working just like a desk job or in tech, and so I was just like, this is what we're experiencing, racial trauma.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Awesome. Like, and the thing about racial trauma inside of workplace, it is one of those things that, like Heather talks about in her book, it's like, because we have to pay our bills, we will stay at a place too long, right? We will stay there because we have responsibilities. We got kids to take care of, we got families to take care of. And so we will endure certain things
mhm.
because we have responsibility. This season is about being bold, being brave, being confident in whatever that area is in your life. I know it took boldness. I know it took bravery. I know it took your confidence to pivot and to get out of working for someone else and to start your own counseling service. Let's get into the work that you're doing that has allowed you to pivot from working for someone else. I know you have an 8-week processing group for Black adults who have experienced race-based trauma and stress. Tell us about that.
Yes. So I think I shared with you in our kind of like pre-interview to prep for today that I'm a doctoral student, right, in the counselor education program. And so my area of expertise that I have been building over the past 3 years is in racial trauma. So
Mm,
really understanding racial trauma and how it impacts the psychological and emotional health for individuals of color.
mm,
And one thing that I have focused on in my clinical work in my private practice is working with clients, BIPOC folks, so Black, Indigenous people of color, and their experiences with race-based stress and trauma. And so doing the individual work has been really rewarding.
mhm.
But then I thought about, what does this work look like from a group setting? Because a lot of the literature and a lot of what I've learned about racial trauma is that when we heal racial trauma, we can't just do it by ourselves. Is that we have to do this in a collective way, right? And so group provides that space. And so I created Hey Fam, Let's Heal, a group where I'm still trying to recruit members for the group, which is an 8-week processing group like you have shared, where we talk about some of these messages that we receive and some of our experiences and support each other through that process, right? And so we focus on racial socialization, racial identity development. We talk about processing the trauma and the experiences that we've had that impacted us negatively, and put us sometimes in the hospital, in the ER, or taking multiple days, from work. And then also focusing on what does healing and resistance look like when it comes to resisting racial trauma and centering our own joy, like Black joy, heal Black joy, and then also centering our own wellness. And so that's the rationale and the purpose for me to create that virtual group.
I love that. I love the fact that you are coming together as a collective, because we're always stronger together, right?
Yep.
I've just found in my own experience that my girlfriends, my male friends that have experienced any type of racial trauma, either whether it's in a workplace or, out in public, we don't really talk about it a lot. I mean, it's becoming polarized now because there have been so many things in social media and the regular media that shows our trauma. And it's just like, enough is enough. I know for me, how even Heal Black Joy started was out of racial trauma. Honestly, the inspiration for Heal Black Joy started because of George Floyd's murder on TV.
Yeah.
I was so tired of watching our trauma being polarized in these spaces that we come on every day, on our phones, on social media, in the news. We're seeing it. And it was like right before our eyes, we're watching a man being killed right before our eyes. And I never thought in my lifetime that I would actually see that, right? And in real time, like it wasn't like something happened and then the news caught it. No, we saw it in real time. And I think collectively, we all were just like, this is getting to be too much. This is out of hand. This is ridiculous at this point. And so I wanted to speak to those things that were on the other side of that were positive, that spoke to our joy, creating content that not only highlights what the trauma is, but also walking us out of the trauma so that we find the joy again, that we find our smiles again, right? So I want to talk about examples of racial trauma. And then I want you to kind of dig into it and let me know your thoughts on it, even in your clinical work that you're doing now in your research. And so some examples of racial trauma can be experience or witnessing hate crimes, having your pain dismissed by health professionals, dealing with microaggressions in the office at work, which you experience. I've experienced it. Being followed in stores, neighborhoods, parks, beaches, everywhere in your own neighborhood. We see it every single day on social media. Experiencing or witnessing police brutality. We've all experienced that. Being denied housing or job based on race. That has become a hot topic here recently because of the big banks that we know, like Wells Fargo. I know Wells Fargo. I can't say the other banks, but Wells Fargo has been hit, with these fines because they were discriminating against Black people when it came to home loans. And also being told your trauma doesn't exist or it isn't real. During George Floyd, I will say this. I remember writing about my experience as a Black woman in America, from childhood on up to my adulthood. And I just gave every day, I was like, here's a daily experience of my life, what I see, what I've experienced, what my friends, what my family members have experienced. And there were a lot of people that were just like, no, I don't see it that way. I really don't see it that way. It was like the white counterparts were not understanding that from your gaze, you might not see it, but from our experience, we are experiencing it. Right. So let's dive into some of these. Experiencing or witnessing hate crimes. What has been your if you've had people that have come to you that experienced or witnessed hate crimes, how does that affect a person when, I mean, we see these things happen all the time in the
Yeah.
news and it bothers us.
Yeah.
What are people experiencing when it comes to that? Like, what are the emotions that come up? How do we manage our emotions when we know that this is a hate crime?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. And what came to mind were the two recent events from earlier this year in Buffalo, New York, and then here in Uvalde, Texas, right, where Black and brown people were targeted and killed because of this ideology of white supremacy, right? And so when that happened, and I mean, they happened back to back, I felt like we couldn't even really sit and process what happened at Buffalo, New York, and then Uvalde happened, right? And so as a counselor that is aware of how social and political climate can impact my clients, I like to, create that space in session, right, for us to talk about what happened, right? And so a lot of my clients, particularly Black clients, and a lot of my clients that identify as Latino, Hispanic, Latinas, they talked about how that triggered a lot of fear for them, right?
Mm,
How seeing that on TV triggered memories of their own experiences with racism, right? Being
wow.
told not to speak Spanish because they live in America,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
Working on the job as in their respective roles, but then being labeled as the help or someone passing their tray to them when they're not a waiter or a waitress, right? And so those experiences, right, came back up for them. And so when it comes to racial trauma, there's a sense of safety that's not there. We don't feel safe. We feel threatened, right, because someone else's issue with the color of our skin, right?
mhm,
It looks like anxiety, hypervigilance. I know for me personally, I felt on edge after experiencing racism consistently, right? And so I'm always looking over my shoulder, going into certain restaurants, certain grocery stores now, looking for the exits because I need to know if something pops off, how am I going to get out of here alive? Right.
mhm,
And so that
mhm,
a lot of my clients experience the same thing. So it's excessive worrying that the white people that I work with, they may cause harm. They may not see me, right? My humanity, right? They may not believe that I
mm,
experienced racism. They may not believe that what I heard, that slick comment that another colleague said, was fueled by racism, right? Like you said
right.
earlier, I don't see it that way. So that gaslighting that we experience as well adds on to those symptoms of racial trauma. We have people who think about suicide because there's this sense of hopelessness that they feel that this will never get better, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so it's so many things that come up for people who experience racism and experience racial trauma that impacts them emotionally and mentally.
I think even when you say the thing about being told that your trauma doesn't exist or it's not real, right? If you're dismissing my trauma, you're dismissing me. So
Yep.
now I'm looking at my own worth. Like, you don't
Mhm.
even see me.
Yep.
There were
Yep.
so many, like, for instance, the thing about the queen. I don't want to get into the death of the queen, but
Sure.
how Black Twitter went up in this whole, you know, comical depiction of her death, right?
Hmm.
There
Hmm.
was some people that were mourning her, and then there were different people of color all over the world that were like, and she died, right? We're happy that she's dead, because there were different uh vantage points, because under her monarchy there have been some things, some atrocities that have happened to
Hmm.
certain groups of disenfranchised people,
Yep.
groups of people, Africa, the Caribbean, all these different places that felt like under her reign they lost something, or things were stolen from them, land was stolen from them, right?
Yeah.
So that's traumatic to them.
Yeah.
But from a white gaze, that white gaze is like, oh, how could you dare make a mockery of the queen. We all should be mourning, right?
Mhm.
But that's not our experience.
Right.
And if people don't understand and recognize that we have our own experience, then I can see how somebody might be suicidal or have anxiety because you don't even want to acknowledge that we also have a different experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, like you said, colonization. I mean, that's a whole topic and discussion for another time, but that's what people were really shining a light on about colonization. And again, this entitlement because of the ideology of white supremacy, right?
Mm.
And so, therefore, I am entitled to the things that you have. And then when you ask them back, right, ask for them back, it's like, how dare you, right? Or how dare you tell the truth about what I've done? Right? How dare you tell the truth, right? This culture of nice also sets us up sometimes for failure too, because we believe that if we can be nice and be very forgiving, it won't happen again. When people are fed up, they want to create these boundaries and say enough is enough, right? We
Yeah.
need to tell the truth about what's going on. And so that's
Yeah.
what people are beginning to do across the world about many different things.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
deconstructing some of the information that was given to us from a historical standpoint
Yep.
and just our thoughts and beliefs around it,
Yep.
around the information that was given to us, because now we don't have to look at things from a white gaze anymore. Like we know the history of,
Right.
so no, we want the correct history being told,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
not just from your gaze.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To make you guys the heroes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Having your pain dismissed by health professionals. I know this is a big one because I work in healthcare. Healthcare is, it pains me to know, and I've seen a lot of these videos on TikTok, and even with one of my mental health brothers that I spoke to earlier this year, he talked about how the Psychology Association as well as the Psychiatric Association have both have come and made an announcement or an apology
Yep.
due to the information that was given in education.
Mm-hmm.
For people that are getting an education in psychology as well as in psychiatry, understanding that the education that was brought forth that you guys have to go and learn was also riddled in racial issues, right?
Sure. Yeah.
From a white gaze.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a lot of times, and this is now being studied, where doctors are having to teach their students diversity when it comes to treating healthcare patients, because maybe people thought that blacks can endure more pain
Yep.
than another human being. It's just like, why do we have to advocate for our health? Like, if I go to the doctor and somebody else goes to the doctor, we should still be all receiving the same type of treatment. Right? But we're not.
Yeah.
And the numbers have come in where blacks and other people of color are not receiving the same treatment as whites. That's just a fact.
Right.
And it's been coming out. So what do you think about, have you had any experiences where someone has come to you saying, I was treated a certain way at a doctor's office based in my race? Yeah.
Yeah. I've had personal experiences. I've had other experiences where I'm working with clients, or, if my clients are a minor and their guardian is coming in and talking about them having to deal with medical issues with medical professionals not believing them, that they're in pain and stuff like that.
Yes.
I've had that. And then I step into that role of, this is how you advocate for yourself and for, the person that you are caring for and that you are a guardian of, right? So teaching them how to ask these different questions, or to ask for a referral, someone who's a bit more culturally aware and responsive, right, to my experiences as a Black person or as a Hispanic person, Asian person, whoever that person may be. I've had personal experiences where I would tell a doctor, you're not leaving out of this room until you tell me what you believe is going on with me. Right? Because what happens for that I believe is that for most people, when we have that experience, our humanity is not centered, right? And so we have a long history in America where Black people in particular are dehumanized, right? And so see me as a human to really be in relationship with me, right? In that moment where there's a medical appointment, whether I'm talking to a colleague at lunch, see my humanity, right? A part of me believes that for racism to um, stay this systemic issue, those same people have to turn off their humanity as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because the humanity in me sees the humanity in you. Therefore, I have to practice and sit with my own humanity. So that way I won't treat you as if you're just a dog on the street or treat you as if you're less than, right? There's a long history of Black people being dehumanized or Black women's bodies being experimented on for medical procedures and stuff like that. We see that with racism in the medical field. We even in the counseling or psychological field, there was a diagnosis called drapetomania, where they said enslaved Africans were dealing with drapetomania because they wanted to run away. If you are beating me, if you are raping my mother and my sister, if you are killing me and I'm working in your fields until my shoulder comes out of place, what makes you think I want to stay here? Right? But then you're going to label me as I'm dealing with drapetomania. Again, there's the dehumanization piece that we have dealt with for centuries, and we're still dealing with it today. As we can see, our people are being under attack in grocery stores and being killed by law enforcement.
I think that is so key. I think what is going on is with us in particular that have been dehumanized is that we can see from our gaze our humanity
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else's humanity because we're the ones that are experiencing the opposite of.
Yeah.
Right? But it's hard for someone who's been on the side of their humanity not being for them not being dehumanized. They never experience it, so they just continue on as is, like nothing
Mm-hmm.
is, just the way that they see it is the way that they see it.
Yeah.
They don't tap into or have a connection to what we experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that it's like it falls on deaf ears, a lot of times. I don't want to say that everybody's like that,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times our white counterparts do not hear it. They don't
Sure.
see it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even wanting to hear, to sit with our experience,
Yeah.
right? So I think that is key, that we have the humanity and we see people from our humanity, but they don't see us from theirs.
Yeah. Well, I share with our people all the time that we're not a violent people. We're not a violent people. We are a loving people, and we
Right.
see that throughout history, through nonviolent movements of the civil rights movement, through if we go way back to ancient Kemet and the knowledge and the experiences that we had where we taught all people across the world, we traded with people and let them into our spaces, and then it's just like, but the violence was turned towards us. That's not who we are. And so we never
Right.
will show up that way. We never
Right.
will show up that way because that's not in us. We're not a violent people, right? If you look at history, you can see where the violence has come from,
Yeah.
right? And where it still is coming from as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about dealing with microaggressions in the office. I do want to share this story, especially in academia.
Mm.
This has been a big one as of recent. And I want to share this story because I have one of my best friends who was a adjunct college professor. And she was at a school in New York that was predominantly white. And she got fired from her job because over the course of 2 semesters, her students, and she's been a radio host, she's been a TV executive TV producer for over 15, 20 years. And she was teaching this radio communications class, and her students complained about her curriculum being too hard, right? That she required too much of them. And she said something to me, and my heart sank. She said, she said, Lola, it wasn't that my curriculum was hard. It wasn't that I was just pushing them to be better, to come up with better stories, to write better, to just raise the bar on what you're used to. Don't just give me fluff, right? But what made my heart sink was she said to me, what I realize is that I'm probably their first experience of a Black woman outside of the help in their house, because the school that she worked at is a private school. A lot of the kids are super rich. Their parents have a lot of money, and she said they've never seen anybody that looks like me in a place of authority that gets to tell them what they need to do. It's always been from their experience has been from someone who worked in their house, who cleaned their house.
Yeah.
And it didn't end well.
Yeah.
Because her department head got phone calls from the president of the college because some of their parents called up and said, we're going to pull funding from you and the donations from you if you keep this woman on your staff. And when she no record of other than there's protocols that you have to take when you're saying this person is complaining and this person is complaining and this person is complaining. Where's the record? You didn't even give me a chance to redeem myself.
Yeah.
You didn't even barely give me a conversation. You basically told me there have been 2 semesters where a couple of students said that I was too hard on them. And because they went crying to mommy and daddy, because they've never seen anybody like me in academia, now my job is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you say, where's the protocol? Because for me, experiencing it in a predominantly white space and seeing it with my other Black colleagues, the protocol changes when it's with us. With us. Right. And so that's how that power and privilege comes into play. That can be very abusive and manipulative. Right. And then we have to deal with the consequence when we're just showing up in our Black excellence and trying to, again, share this knowledge and expertise that we have to build up a people, but they, again, entitled and don't have a schema or representation of an intelligent Black woman. And so therefore, I got to get you because you challenged me.
Intelligent comes up as you're aggressive, you're angry, you're all of these descriptive words that is not really what it is. It's not the reality. But even in my work that I do, I have to be assertive in my work when I'm training world-renowned doctors, right? It would eat me alive. But if I'm the subject matter expert in the room and I show up with a certain assertiveness, then I could be deemed angry or aggressive or this woman with an attitude. Who is this woman with an attitude? No, I'm just here to train you. And you're not going to challenge me on the information that I've taught for over 10 to 12 years. Right? I'm not aggressive. I don't have to raise my voice. You just hear it from that space. And that's what's going on in the workplace. And that is what microaggression is. This has been a big one. This is where the infamous quote unquote Karen came from. Being followed in stores, neighborhoods, parks, barbecues. There's a whole entire chat on social media. I know on Instagram where it's like the Karens have showed up to the beach. The Karens have showed up in the store. The Karens have showed up at the barbecue. You can't sell lemonade in front of your house anymore. You can't even go water your neighbor's your neighbor's flowers while they go out, go on vacation. What is that about, man? What is that about?
One word: surveillance. Surveillance. That's what that is. There's this sense of, I have the right to watch you and to question you and your whereabouts. I have the right. I have the right. That's what that comes to for me and colleagues. Again, using a personal experience to connect with what you're talking about. My schedule used to be watched a lot. I see that you have this outside meeting. I see that you're doing this. Like, what's going on, Tim? What is this about? It's like, I'm working. I see my clients, don't I? Or I know that you and this other person, other Black person, went to the same event, but the timing is different on your schedule. So, like, did y'all stay there for 3 hours? Did you stay there for 4? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what it is. What is it any of your business?
Right.
Other than you feel entitled to watch me, right? And watch what I do consistently. But if I say something about your schedule, it's an issue. Why are people looking at people's schedules? Right? But you can look at the Black person's schedule, right? That's what it comes down to. Surveillance. That's exactly what it comes down to. Yeah.
I'm going to watch what you do because I don't trust what you say or what you do, right? Yes. Which goes back to not having humanity.
Yeah. Not having control of our bodies and where we go. There's a history of that as well. Right?
It's a deep-rooted history in that.
It's a deep-rooted history, yeah. Just like we have survival strategies that are now become, in a way, issues for the Black community, white people have also passed down certain behaviors and patterns that is problematic for them as well, right? To where we have the Karens, we have the Chads, the Brocks, the Susans, we have them in these spaces that still feel like, well, I'm entitled. I can tell you where you can go and what you can and cannot do. Again, because that ideology of whiteness is supreme, right? And so therefore I'm supreme. I'm above you. I'm over you. So I control you.
Oh, wow. This is getting so good, you guys. Experiencing or witnessing police brutality. I got an example this week. My daughter was leaving her job this week at night, and she did not put the lights on. I will tell you that, to be fully transparent. She was in my car. She did not turn the lights on. She's driving down this dark road, but there's a gas station at the end of the road that's open 24/7. So she's calling me like almost hysterical, crying because this cop has stopped her, but he put on his lights on this dark road.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going through my daughter's mind is all the things that she's seen on social media.
Yep.
She's never experienced a cop stopping her, number one.
Yep.
Number two, the trauma that I didn't even realize that she had experienced from watching the stuff on social media has now landed in her lap. And she's just like, mommy, and I'm just like, be calm. I was a little frustrated because I was like, you should have had your lights on. But I'm so glad that she thought enough to say, hey, let me drive to this gas station where it's light, people are there, because I would not want my child to be out at night,
right,
pulled over on a dark road where nobody would have been able to witness what transpired between the two. Right. Luckily, he just gave her a warning and she was able to go on. But just the feeling of it, she felt a certain way about that because she's seen all these people die. She's seen all these people go to jail. She's seen all these people, when they go to jail, they might not make it out alive. She's seen all of this stuff in social media, and she's been traumatized by it.
Yeah. And that's
and then the other thing is, you don't even realize that you're experiencing trauma until you're faced with it.
There you go. Yeah. Not knowing that this would be a trigger for me, right? Like you said, never experiencing that, but seeing that vicariously through social media. So now all of those memories, all of those images and stories are coming up for her.
Yes.
Yeah, which
Yes.
is a common response. Yeah, a common response to that,
Yeah.
being stopped by the cops.
Yes. Being denied housing or a job based on race.
Yeah,
I would think in 2022, right? We should not be experiencing this.
right.
We should not be experiencing redlining.
Hmm.
Redlining is a thing that happens in real estate where there are certain areas that only you can be, go to get housing, like low income areas, or you're not getting a home loan based off of your color, your skin color.
Hmm.
And their big banks are getting in trouble for that in 2022.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Again, I think that the the behavior hasn't been interrupted. Again, it's a lot of what I think of is behaviors and actions that are just passed on, and people haven't questioned why we do certain things. So those people that get into power is just like it's always been done this way, right? And so the people that taught them again thought a certain way, and so they think that's the same way, and it just keeps getting passed down, and
Yeah.
we keep getting hurt, right? We keep getting hurt. Whether it's we apply for a job, and because our name sounds too ethnic or whatever they want to say, that maybe this person isn't a good fit for our agency or for our company,
Mm, mm.
right? When there's a
Mhm,
bias there,
mhm.
right? And
What do we do? My uncle he was the federal director for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
okay,
My oldest sister, retired from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and that is based on people being discriminated in the
hmm,
workplace based in race,
yeah,
and or whatever they have going on, not necessarily just based in race, but just being not created equal, not
hmm,
being treated equal.
yeah,
Humanity has been the thread of this conversation, or the lack thereof. um what do we do as people of color? How do we break the patterns
hmm,
that we're experiencing? Hate crimes, being dismissed by healthcare professionals, dealing with microaggressions in the job place, being followed in public places, experiencing or witness police brutality,
yeah,
um, being denied housing or jobs.
hmm,
How do we, the people that have the humanity and that are being dehumanized, what can we do to break those patterns? What can we do on our end?
yeah. I'm glad you asked that. A part of what I do when I'm working with clients and talking with friends who experience racism is one, seeking safety, right?
Okay.
Seeking safety, because when we experience that, the body can go into this fight or flight. What are we doing? What are we doing? And even after the event has already occurred and we think about that event, sometimes the body can still go back to, okay, is this happening in real life? When it's not, it's just a memory, right? And so seeking safety is so important
Mm,
when we are healing and trying to recover from racism and racial trauma. And so that can be talking to a friend, right, about what happened, that you know you're going to feel validated, that you're going to feel heard, and that you're going to feel seen, right?
mm,
Knowing different people that you can call and talk to help you talk you down if you feel very anxious or hyper vigilant, right? Coming up with some type of like safety plan. I do that with clients now about when you experience racism, let's talk about your safety plan. What are some triggers? Is it a microaggression? Is it being followed in the store? Is it seeing cops turn around when they pass you when you're driving, right? What are those triggers, right? What are some different things that you can do in order to calm yourself down? But the main part is seeking safety. Another one is centering rest. I share so much with my clients, especially my Black clients and my Black people that's listening. Rest is so important, right? We have to rest and we have to recover. because of enslavement, and I think I shared this with you before, we
Mm-hmm.
learned some things where we're just like, I'm gonna keep on going. You know, that's just how they do, and that's just how they view it. But I'm gonna keep on going. I'm gonna keep on going, and we never take the time to rest and to recover. Because when we are rested and we're still and we're listening, right, and just being present, then we can find some sense of peace, right? We can begin to recover from that racism.
Rest is essential, but I think what has been going on, like my girlfriend Heather Archer said in that topic about work trauma, is that we have this grind culture that stems
Yeah.
out of slavery,
Mhm.
that has been passed down, based in the fact that we've got to work, we have responsibilities, we don't take the time to rest. Rest is
Yeah.
essential, but
Yeah.
our mindset doesn't tell us that because
Yeah.
we're literally in survival mode,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? We
Yep.
want to survive because of all of this intergenerational trauma,
Yep.
all of the racial trauma that's going on, all of the different types of forms of trauma that we've experienced in our lifetime, or our grandmothers or grandfathers or mothers and fathers have experienced, and we adopted some of that same mindset. I don't think people feel like, and I could be wrong, but I think as a collective, I don't know if we know that we have the option
There it
to rest.
is. Yeah, there it is. The option to rest. And I share that with with my clients all the time, that our ancestors couldn't rest because they could have been killed,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so we pass that on again as a survival strategy. Just push through it, turn the other cheek, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. Well, we have this John Henryism that comes up in Black men, and this strong woman superhero kind of like characterization of Black women, right? And then we're dealing with diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, because we're just grinding. And that cortisol level and that stress in the body is just causing inflammation, which is leading to these long-term chronic illness, right? And so that's why rest and recover, right, is so
Mm,
important as well, right?
yeah.
Seeking joy. I know you talk about heal Black joy. See, our joy is so important. We can, as you can see, Black Twitter, and when we get on social media, we can turn anything
Oh my
and make
God.
it funny, right?
We
That
are,
is our way of healing. That is our way of being
yeah,
together. Yeah.
I love that because I think in those spaces where we can just laugh at some of the things that, how we turn our trauma into something that we can make fun of. I
Yep.
think that we're changing or turning the corner
Right.
of it, because I think people need to see joy. We need to smile. We need to experience joy.
Yep.
But a lot of times, like I said, we don't even know. A lot of times I've been on Clubhouse, I've spoken on Clubhouse, I've spoken on different podcasts, and it comes up every single time, especially when I'm trying to promote joy. They're like, we didn't even know we could have joy.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't know that that was a thing.
Yeah.
Because we've lived in such mess
And chaos. Yeah.
and chaos,
Yeah.
that we don't even realize our bodies, our minds have normalized all of the chaos. And I will give you an example. I remember when my daughter was in elementary school for spring break, we went on a cruise. Worst decision I could have ever done, to go on a cruise during spring break, because it was kids everywhere.
Yeah.
So that was not restful for me. But I will say, like, my daughter would get in the pool. She was the only Black child in the pool. I was the only Black person on the ship that was just kind of laying out and resting. Everybody else they would look, they would go to the, get food. They would just be kind of tense. And I noticed that. I was just like, you're on a boat on the ocean and you still have this intense thing where you cannot just breathe and relax and just like let your hair down.
Yeah.
We don't even know when we're on vacation that we need to vacate.
Yeah. And relax. Yeah. a lot of the grind, I think, I'm not familiar too much with the work of the person that you named earlier, friend, but I believe that a lot of that grind culture does come from currently this sense also of that the more I produce, the more worthy I am,
Woo!
right? And
We
I
just
deal
tapped into something more.
right. I share that a lot with clients that what you produce and what you can put out, what projects you can complete, that doesn't determine your worth. You are worthy because you are a human, right? But
Wait
because
a
of
minute.
patriarchy,
Wait a minute now. We're going into another gear. You can't just like what did Kevin Hart say? You just can't just go on about it like we go just No, rewind, stop. Let's go back.
okay.
Go back to what you just said about worth.
Yes.
So our productivity, what we do
Has been warped
has been warped.
with
And
worthiness.
we think our mindset thinks that that is what our worth is based in what we do.
Yep.
It's all performance based.
It is. If you think about it, the system of patriarchy sets us up for that, right? You're working on a job, you have to meet with your supervisor, talk about your performance evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all these practices that we still have that are rooted in oppression. It is, right? We're focusing on numbers, we're focusing on performance, we're focusing on the more you work, the more you would be praised, right? So again, being stuck in this system, and we say, "Oh, I have clients a lot that say, "Oh, I didn't really do nothing yesterday. I'm so lazy." It's just like you have the choice to rest. It sounds like you just needed to rest, right? But sharing that it sounds like when you're not producing anything and when you're not putting in work, doing something around the house, you don't feel a sense of worthiness. Let's talk about that.
Can we talk about that from a black man and a black woman vantage point too?
Okay.
Because black women, if we're not doing something in our house, we think that is equivalent to our worth as well.
Yep.
Whereas when black men are doing something outside of the home, whether it's
Mhm.
playing a sport or building or
Yep.
mowing the grass or whatever, sometimes they don't find value outside of what they do,
Yes.
their own value. It's
Yes.
all performance based. But we've been taught that
Yep.
if we get praised for running a touchdown, if
Yep.
we get praised for our dance recital, if we
Mhm.
get praised for all these performances
Yep.
and not based in just our being,
There it is. Yeah.
our mindset is about our performance.
Then it becomes conditional, right? It becomes conditional. If you look at TV shows, from all of these shows where you have judges that are judging these people based on their talent, we have this culture where, like you say, it's performance and we're always being critiqued, we're always being evaluated. And so that creates a sense of anxiety. And so I must keep going. I have to be perfect in order to feel some sense of validation, right? We're just like, you're a human being. You deserve that validation from yourself and from others just because, just like you said, of just showing up. I am worthy. I am because of who I am, just being a human being. But we believe that we have to have that worthiness has to be exchanged with work.
Let me tell you something. I will give you my full transparency. Last week, I was going through it. I felt like somebody had taken me, slammed me up against the wall mentally. I was mentally tired.
Sure.
Right? From my job, from my business, doing all of the stuff that I do with Heal Black Joy. I didn't do a show last week.
Mm-hmm.
I normally post a Sunday affirmation every Sunday, and I post it on all social medias and everything. And I remember Sunday, I got up and I was like, oh, I need to post a Sunday affirmation. And my body was like, you need to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And I would lay back down and I had almost had heart palpitations because I was just like, I need to post this because people need to see it, because this information needs to get out there. People like Sunday affirmations, right?
Yeah.
But I got a year's worth of Sunday affirmations that people can go and look at,
Right.
and be inspired by.
Right.
But in my own value, my own worth, I was just like, no, I got to perform. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. And it took me a second in my mind to like talk to me and say, Lola, no, your body and your mind need rest.
Yep. And I'm so glad that you were able to talk yourself down and to acknowledge that, because sometimes we don't pay attention to what our body is saying, and the body is going to let you know, nope, you keep going, I'm going to shut down.
Yeah.
Right. In order to survive, I'm going to shut down, and you need to rest.
I'm high functioning even when I'm tired. I have trained myself over the years to just produce, even when I'm tired. But as I've gotten older, I can't, my brain will be like, Lola, no, you need to shut it down. And I think that's where I just got to a moment where I just needed a break from everything. And just take a moment for myself. Now, I will say, even though I talked myself down, Warren, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
It was a struggle. Like, I felt guilty about it. I had guilt surrounding not performing.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many people, if I feel that way, and I've done the work and I've done the healing and I coach people in this, I wonder how many people are still doing that.
Yep.
Right? If I'm doing it and I struggle with that, how many others are still doing it?
Yeah. And I share it with people because I had to learn this myself, and about that sense of still feeling worthy, even if I feel like I didn't produce as much, and reminding myself at the end of the day, when I'm about to go to bed, you did your best today.
Yeah.
And the rest, you can take care of it later. It'll get done, you will finish that project, that paper. But for today, I want to acknowledge and be grateful for the work that I did put out.
I'm glad you said that. How important is it for self-affirmation, like to affirm yourself?
Yes.
Because we are always looking for this external validation, right?
Yep.
But how important is it to us?
Yeah.
When we're already, from our own experience, people are not seeing our humanity. So when we go home at night after we've gone to work and we've done all the things that we're supposed to do, that's performance-based, how important is it to have a routine, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, sometimes both, because I had to talk to myself daily. Like, I got to be my biggest cheerleader in the morning and at night. Like, hey, like you said, I've done the best that I could on today.
Yeah.
How important is that?
Yeah. Very important. Very important, because if we're waiting for someone else to say it, then we're going to be stuck in that cycle of I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. And so to disrupt that cycle, I did my best today. I did my best today. Whatever I didn't finish today, I can work on it tomorrow.
So I think the things that I'm getting from this conversation is that, one, if people don't see our humanity, we need to recognize our own humanity.
And center that.
And center it.
Yes.
And also seek safety. You said seek safety. I think that is vitally important. I think it's important for us to have a collective, also a support system, where we can bounce things off of, whether that's your good girlfriend or your homeboy, that you can, a safe space where you can have the conversation. How important is the collective?
It's so important. We can't do this by ourselves. We cannot do this by ourselves. When I was dealing with what I was dealing with, I spoke to my good sister that lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, about my experiences. She was there to support me, to reach out to me. I have, which I consider kind of like my council of elders, Black men that are older than me, that are in my profession. They're just like, we're gonna hold you accountable and taking care of yourself, black man, because we need you, right? And so they check in on me, send me text messages. I'm talking to my mentor. At least twice a month. We're talking about, just my experiences and what's going on. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for community. Right? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for community. And so that is so important, to not be in isolation, because that isolation can create that sense of worthlessness, helplessness, loneliness, and then you feel like you're by yourself.
Yeah. I love that you said that council of elders.
Yeah.
That takes me back to our roots, right?
Yes.
The councilmen of elders. Like, I think it's important that not only men have people that they can look up to that have had those experiences prior to. They're older, they're wiser, they've experienced more, they've gone through what we've gone through, and
Yep.
you can have those conversations, as well as women. I think a lot of times we hold back because of embarrassment or shame, right? We don't want to share our story or our experience, but I found myself now almost approaching 50 that I've got my younger girlfriends who are in their 40s or in their 30s. They'll come to me and they'll say things to me like, Lola, I'm experiencing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, girl, let me tell you, I did that 20 years ago. You're going to be fine.
Yep.
Please don't beat yourself up about it. I go through that thing with them where it not only shows them I'm seeing them, I'm seeing their humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm also a tangible evidence for them that even if you're going through it right now, even if you're going through the chaos right now, I'm the evidence that you're going to make it through it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I think it's so vitally important for people, younger people, to have those councilmen and that tribe of women that have had bigger experiences, that have had experiences prior to you, that have gone through the things that you've gone through, because they can definitely give good counsel.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so important. I love that. And also just you said seek safe spaces, having seek safety, finding that collective, understanding humanity, being human, and seeing the humanity in others. And what other things can we take away from this conversation?
We talked about creating space for joy. Joy is so important. Resting, and then also, I share those things because I feel like those are very vital. But you have some people who want to get in the ring and they want to be a fighter, and so not physically, but they want to use their voice to call out certain systems and certain practices that works against or dehumanizes, Black people. You can do that as well. If that is your lane, I say go for it. Remember to rest, remember to recover, and tag someone else in if you want to do that. But that's also important too. So really naming microaggressions with micro interventions, and disarming other people when they are harming you, creating those boundaries, right? Being a writer, going to social media, activist work as well. That's another way in which you can kind of create this buffer against racial trauma. Being prideful, having pride in one's racial identity, right? And then your family history and lineage and heritage, and remembering those certain practices, doing that as well. Parents, racial socialization, having age appropriate conversations about race and racism with your children is so important, because a lot of the racism that children experience is in K through 12, right? In that classroom, typically with that white female teacher, right? Or their white classmates. And so it's so important to arm and prepare our children, our babies, so that when they get our age, they already got what they need, right, to continue to navigate these certain racially hostile spaces.
Man, let me tell you something. I remember when all this stuff went on with George Floyd, and I was writing every day, like, hey, this has been my experience, blah, 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 blah. And I remember this like it was yesterday, because it was so connected to my upbringing.
Yeah.
So my dad and my mom are retired educators, and people that know my father or people that were taught by my father felt like my dad was very, very stern, and he was. He was a person that demanded a lot of respect. A lot of the what we call thugs of the school, they would just dump them in my dad's class, and
Okay.
those guys respected my dad and they didn't play. If he was in the hallway, you better straighten yourself up, right?
Mhm.
And I remember writing about, I can't remember exactly what my experience was, what I wrote about, but there was a white female teacher who wanted to combat my experience, that it didn't exist or it wasn't real. And I tried to explain to her how she was being racist.
Mhm.
Like, and I gave her it was a post that showed how racist are you, and it went through different levels of what racism
Right.
is all about. And she was one of my dad's colleagues.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, Warren, I got so angry at
Yeah.
her because I felt like, because my dad worked with this woman
Yep.
in her racism, and she wasn't the only one.
Yep.
I felt like she was the catalyst
Mm.
that robbed me as a child of the tenderness of my father.
Wow.
And I told him that because he was angry. But from a gaze of a child, you don't understand what your parents' anger is about.
Yeah.
You don't understand what the adults are having to deal with when they go to work. So it's not only children in school, it's
Yeah.
also Black teachers, Black educators, Black counselors,
Mhm.
people of color that work in those spaces, people that work, might be the janitor,
Yep.
right? That are also experiencing microaggression
Oh yeah.
or experiencing some racial trauma at work, and they have to go home and try to turn it off
Yeah.
when they're angry, because in that time my dad couldn't go to his boss and say, this woman is being racist, because what? My dad had a job, he had a responsibility, he had a wife, he had kids that he had to feed.
Mhm.
So he probably, I never asked him this, and I'm going to ask him because I want to interview him. I want to ask him, did you feel like you didn't have a voice?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, as big as he was to me and as big as he was to a lot of people in my community, I can't imagine as a Black man how it felt every single day going to his job and not feeling like, one, he wasn't being seen as an equal
Yeah.
with a master's degree,
Mhm.
right? But also not being seen, just
Yeah.
not being seen, not being
Yeah.
seen as a human being.
Yep.
And I felt like she contributed to taking away the tenderness of him
Yeah.
from me. And I
Yeah.
was mad about that thing. Woo, I was mad.
Yeah. That's
And I told
something.
her about it too.
Yeah. That's something also that's so important, is to tap into that anger. A lot of times we shy away from anger because we feel like it's a negative emotion. And I share
Mm,
with clients and with everyone that anger is just like any other emotion, that is sending some message to you. And for you, you felt violated, you felt hurt,
yeah,
right? And so that
yeah,
anger came out because that anger
yeah,
is there to motivate you to do something about it. And so a lot of my work, whether it's writing, whether it's speaking, whether it is the clinical work, came from the anger that I felt from being microaggressed, what I saw my sisters going through, being disrespected in the workplace, what I saw my brother going through, right, not being promoted in his rightful respectful role because of racism. I just remember going home and just feeling so angry, and I said I have to do something with this, because if not, this is going to take a toll and it's going to turn and be more negative towards my health. And so what I did is I started doing presentations, I started writing, I started doing things to channel that anger into work, right? And so it is so important to acknowledge that that anger that you feel could be because you felt violated and that you felt hurt by someone's
yeah,
actions. Yeah.
absolutely. I think I'm glad you said that, because at one point in time, I felt guilty for being angry, which is a natural thing.
Yep.
We feel guilty because we're not supposed to show up angry, right?
Yeah.
Because as you know, they don't see our humanity, and not seeing my humanity, I'm not supposed to ever have anger.
Yep.
Even though I did, it was a real thing for me. And I'm glad you said that it is okay. Don't stay there. Do something with the anger, And I think that for me, having these conversations, exposing people to what it is that we experience on an everyday basis, but also give us tangible steps how we walk ourselves out of the racial trauma, the spiritual trauma, the work trauma, the things that we go through. Let's give voice to those people that don't have the voice.
Yes.
Right? That can't speak up.
Yep.
Because of responsibility or because they're scared to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
for me, similar to you, I used to feel like, am I being disruptive? Am I being rebellious? Because I was like, that's not who I was. I'm very reserved, very quiet. But I do know that I understand what I reflected on with my own counselor, talking about my values, and I value truth and I value justice. And so when those values are being conflicted with something that's going on, that's where that anger is coming up. And so to live in alignment with that, I had to speak out against that injustice. And I would do it every chance I got. And then I would tag a sister in, I'd tag a brother in, y'all go ahead and handle it. I'm going to go ahead and rest. But when you need me the next time, we're going to do this together. I'm not doing this by myself. And I remember my spiritual mentor, he told me, he said, keep speaking up because my voice is helping other people who's being harmed as well. And so that's what I did.
I love that because I think a lot of times people think, oh, you got to march. Oh, you got to, be this revolutionary type person. No, we're both in the same space where we're exposing these things, but we're doing it from two very different areas, even different from the people that march and the people that, show up to Congress and say that we need bills changed, or people that are on TV and they're protesting like, there's so much work that can be done in this space, you guys. And I'm just so thankful to be on this journey with you. Thank you. Being able to hear and experience your expertise and to understand that there are people like you in this space that are talking to people like us. And giving us a blueprint of how we walk through this journey, showing up in our humanity. I love that. So thank you for what you do each and every day.
Thank you.
Thank you. What can we look forward to in the near future for you?
So for me right now, I'm working on a digital product, which is going to be a healing racial trauma, workbook that I'm trying to create, where it's digital, since we're in the digital, world now, to where people can, by that have access to kind of go through some of these steps that we talked about today, and really journal and get some of that hurt and trauma that they experience out. So that's something that I'm doing. My goal is to continue to do this work, do a lot of research in racial trauma as well, and really just continue to show up. And so to connect and collaborate with other folks like yourself who have these platforms to talk about how important this is and how we can heal from this. So that's my goal, just continue to show up and do the work.
Man, I'm so happy to be doing this with you and being able to highlight what you do, you guys. I put on our banner his email in case you want to reach out to Warren. It's warren@transformationalservices.org. If you want to get him to come and speak in your organization, if you have conversations about racial trauma or pivoting out of the workplace, being bold, being brave, being confident to pivot. Because I think people don't realize that they can't pivot. It's about choices, right? We got options.
We got options. Yes. That's true.
So we need to sometimes take those options. We don't have to stay in spaces any longer that no longer serve us.
Right.
Let that be a word.
Yes.
Don't my good girlfriend, her name is oh God, why is her name not coming? I can see her face right now. She's not coming to my her. She says, when God has left the room. Right? Meaning, when God leaves the room, where you've been at a place too long, whether that's a relationship, a job, a building, when God has left the room.
Yeah.
When it's not sweet anymore, when it's not peaceful anymore, when it's not loving anymore, God has left the room.
Yep.
Dr. Lacara, that's her name. Lord, it was not coming to me. Yeah, but she talks about that all the time. She's like, when God has left the room.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to realize that we have options. Yep. And it in your gut, that thing, that internal compass that God gives us, when it's time to go. But we stay too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you say that you're working on a digital product. Mm-hmm. How can we find you if we're looking for you on social media? Mm-hmm. What is I know your tag for Instagram, it's transformational.
Mm-hmm. Counseling
on Instagram.
Transformational counseling on Instagram. Yeah.
Counselor or counseling?
Counseling.
Okay.
So that's my business one.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. And then my website is transformationalservices.org.
Services.org. Mm-hmm. I've also put that in the chat. You guys, please reach out to Warren Wright for anything that has to deal with racial trauma. If you need counseling, you can practice in what areas?
In Texas, only in Texas.
Only in Texas, you guys, right now. But
I provide in-person and telehealth.
Yeah, I'm seeing you doing some more stuff outside of Texas.
That's the goal.
Yes, I can't wait.
The goal. Yeah.
I can't wait. Whatever you're working on, man, please just let me know. You have been adopted to the Heal Black Joy tribe. We thank you for sharing your expertise with us. If there's anything that we can do to help you get your product out, to get your information out, please do not hesitate to let us know.
Will do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And to my Heal Black Joy tribe, thank you guys always for tuning in on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys, I am working diligently to get all of our episodes from season 1, season 2, and this current season 3 up on our streaming podcasting platforms. So that will be sometime probably at the beginning of October that they'll all be up. And you can go to your normal podcasting service, whether it's Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever you go to listen to podcasts. We will have over probably 60 episodes loaded up for you. All right. Thank you guys. Tonight has been wonderful. I will see you next week.
Take care.
Thank you.